Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's stream. Just before I get started, I wanted a confirmation that everybody can hear me clearly. So just let me know if there's any audio issues. And if not, we can totally get started. So let me get this up here. All right, I have just want to make sure my chat window is up here. All right, thank you, Stephen Morris, for the confirmation. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, from wherever you're streaming in from. And welcome to today's session, is connecting devices to Azure IoT Hub. So the title sounds kind of complicated, but I promise you it is not. So let's get into it. So I'm Swiki. Super awesome to meet all of you, meet all of you. I am currently in San Francisco, and I work in what is known as the Mobile Customer Advisory Team in Microsoft. So pretty sure you guys are noticing the slight not the lack of connection in what I do and what the stream is about, but I promise you the whole story makes sense. I love coding for candy, so it's a known fact. So if you ever need me to do any work for you, just give me some candy. And as part of the Mobile Customer Advisory Team, I work on Xamarin. I was actually hired into Microsoft through the Xamarin acquisition, so that was pretty fun. It's been really awesome. And if you need to reach me, I dropped in my GitHub at the bottom left there, and on the right is my Twitter handle. And yep, so now that you all know me and I sort of know you, let's get started, I guess. So today's plan. So it is July IoT. So we're going to be talking about some IoT things, some IoT devices. So the plan for today, what I was thinking about is, so as the topic says, we're talking about connecting devices to Azure IoT, right? So consider this stream to be part one of a two-part series. So today is more of like a beginner's, like a very basic, we're going to take our Raspberry Pi, we have a basic circuit connected to it. So we're going to try and, get that circuit set up first off. Then we're going to see how Visual Studio Remote debugging works. And they're going to write some very simple, very basic, C# code and connect this Raspberry Pi circuit to Azure IoT Hub. And then we're going to make it smart. When I say make it smart, it's not super complicated. All I'm talking about is let's connect it to some Azure services like Azure Service Bus and Logic Apps. And possibly, if everything goes well today, we will be able to send a tweet when I press the button that's connected to my Raspberry Pi board. And why I said this is a two-part series is because, so today we're learning how to get a very basic, simple program running. So this is just a simple button press on a Raspberry Pi circuit, and it's triggering an action in Azure. Part two of the series will be on Thursday, where my teammate Ben and I are actually going to show you how to do something similar, but with a Xamarin application instead. So that's a little more advanced. So we'll be writing a Xamarin app that runs on your mobile device. And so this time, the device we will be connecting to Azure will be a mobile phone, not just an IoT, not just a Raspberry Pi. So it's going to be pretty fun. So this is basically like us getting warm, getting to understand how things work session, and that will be a little bit more advanced. We'll be talking about a couple more advanced topics then. So moving on, to follow along everything I am doing right now, and I will also make sure the deck is shared and the link is shared and all of it goes out. I'm also going to try and drop this in the chat window in a couple of minutes as I get started and I get out of the PowerPoint. But the whole complete code and everything I'll be doing today is actually on my GitHub already. So you can completely follow along. I actually set up the README in a way that I can follow through it as we do the whole session today. So it's kind of like a check mark for me to make sure we're not, going off track. So, like I said in the agenda, Thank you, Megan. She just dropped the chat, she dropped the link to the GitHub in the chat window already if anybody wants to follow along. So, like I said, quick, if you like architecture diagrams or flow diagrams, I obsess over lists and I obsess over Schitt's Creek. So, apologies for a couple of other GIFs you might see in this presentation. But the plan for today basically is we're going to take a Raspberry Pi. I have my board set up, going to see how to connect that to IoT Hub. And then we're going to use two other Azure services. One is called the Service Bus Queue, and the other one is called the Logic app. And the Logic app has built-in connectors, so you can send a lot of different, you can have a lot of different things you can do with the Logic app. We're using the most basic scenario that I could think of, is just to send a tweet. So the idea being we press a button, it triggers something in the Logic app, which sends out a tweet. Simple. That's super. That's all we're doing today. If we can do this much, I'm going to be super happy if we can get this much done. It's going to be so cool. All right, so that's like the complicated way of describing it. This is literally what I thought of when I was thinking of the sample. So, ooh, what does this button do? Then some sort of cool magic in between. And then, ooh, there's a tweet. So, yeah, if this also goes as planned, I finally will have a annoy my teammates button. So I'm just going to set this button up to just tweet at my teammates, which is going to be really epic. So you can use it for your world domination plans as well. All right. So let me get out of here. So since you all already have the GitHub repo, if you're following along, this is what the repo will look like once you get started. So, you have the README here with all the steps which we will be following today. All you need is Visual Studio Code, and we're going to be using basic free Azure services. So you don't need need to do any other complicated setup. All right then, let's get started. So the first thing we have to do here, like it says, we have to connect our components. So let me switch over to this cool looking camera setup that I have going on. So you should see a bunch of wires, a Raspberry Pi, and another IoT device. And you should see my code, and you should see my other window. So I'm just going to open up this image. So because this is what we're going to use to connect. Oops, this is a bit too zoomed in. Let me go back over to this one. This is much nicer. Okay, so this is what is called a fritzing diagram. But what I like to think of it is, it's just a nice visual graphical way of setting up a breadboard. You could always also use like a traditional circuit diagram. But this is way cooler because you can sort of see what's happening. And for someone like me who, as I explained before, this is not my day-to-day. So I basically approach writing IoT code like I would writing a client app. So I deal with mobile phones every day. So something visual is a lot easier for me to follow. So that is why I have the fritzing diagram up. And if you can see my board, so I'm going to move this away. So this is actually another board. This is the Arduino. This is an Arduino. It's called the SparkFun ThinkDev. And this is where I actually got the idea to make this C# version of what we can call this an IoT button or a smart button. But the basically is with the SparkFun board, it is it's a really cool, like as you can see, it's a lot smaller than the Raspberry Pi, but it's really smart and powerful. It's got like a Wi-Fi chipset already built in, so you don't have to do anything funky. It's really easy to get set up. You can, if you're comfortable with Arduino, you can check out the IoT button tutorial for SparkFun, which is where I kind of got the inspiration for this, sort of sample demo for today. So I'm going to move this out of the way. I just want to show you that, look, IoT devices come in so many different ways, and they can all connect to Azure, which is magical. So let's get this guy out. Okay, so this is our Raspberry Pi for today. So if you look, I've turned the breadboard a bit to the side just so everybody can see. But if what's basically going on here is we have all the different circuit parts, right? So this is our LED, which will light up. This is a resistor. This is, of course, the Raspberry Pi. This section over here is what's the GPIO pins. So this is in all of like the beginner samples that you'd see from, in the IoT Hub, samples or anything on the internet. It usually, in very basic terms, all you'll be doing is connecting a pin to one of your devices, or let's call them devices. Sure, why not? So like it could be an LED, it could be a button in this case. You could have a temperature sensor. You could have any other sorts of sensors. So anything you want to control. In most cases, you'll be if it involves you trying to control it from the code, you need to isolate it to a pin. So that's kind of what a lot of these circuits are like. A lot of these buttons are. So we have this connection over here. So the orange wire over here, this is literally just controlling the power. So when it goes from here to here, I'm basically just providing multiple points of power to the circuit. So that is the point of extending it from here to here. The next important, I guess, connection here is this guy here. This is creating a shared ground connection. So there's ground along all of these straight line dots, and there's positive, just like power running through these dots here. And so that basically, so the idea of doing that is there's only so many, power and ground pins on the Raspberry Pi. And as you build more and more complicated circuits, you kind of want multiple ways of like sort of, pulling in ground or power sources to the different elements that you're connecting. So extending it in that sense just allows you to, have more points to sort of input your, wires in. The next thing that we have is, so then we have the other two connections that's left over, that's these two here. So one of these is connected to my button, and the other pin is connected to this LED. And the other bits on, so this is a tactile, so they call it a tactile switch. I like to just call it a push button, or the button of destiny, whatever you want to call it. And the other bits left in the circuit are resistors. So so we have a cool 101.NET series where we go over how to get .NET set up with the Raspberry Pi, and how you can use .NET and the .NET libraries, for your code. So it's like a very basic, intro series. And in that, if you've done that, or if you go back and do it after watching this, you'll notice that this half, just the LED half of the circuit, will look very familiar, because this is what is the hello world of the IoT area, which is LED blinking. So so basically this part of the circuit is exactly the same as that. All I have done is added an extension to it, and I have so yeah, after adding the extension, the idea being I wanted to just have another pin. So I have one pin controlling my LED light. I wanted a second pin, which I will use to control the button. So that's it. So like I said, this is super basic, and this is like the easiest way that I myself could follow. So I thought everyone else would enjoy seeing how I did this also. So all I did was I took the LED circuit and I extended it to sort of connect, and just added a button that I can control. So I basically isolated them to these two pins over here. So in the code, in very basic, like if you were just like sort of, someone asks me high level what's going on with these wires and circuits, all I'm doing is I'm isolating the LED and the button to two pins, and I'm going to trigger and control those two pins from my code, because that's all I want to do. So the way our button of destiny works today is, first, as we are doing some local debugging, I wanted not only feedback from the debugger, but I also kind of wanted a visual feedback. Because like I said, as a .NET and as a mobile developer, there's a lot of visual stuff that I deal with. So I like having some sort of visual feedback to know what I'm doing works. So that's what the LED is for. You could totally run this whole thing without the LED. You don't technically need it. I just think blinking LEDs are cool, and sure, why not? So, and the next bit is, so like I said, we press the button. You can kind of hear my tactile button go click, click. But yeah, so idea being press a button and something should happen. We don't know what yet, but something should happen. So, okay, step one is done. I have notes on the side, because as you can see, I like having a little bit of structure in what we're doing. So I'm just like looking at my notes to make sure we're on track. Okay, circuit setup. Next thing is so this is what I was talking about, the .NET 101 series. Let me grab this link and put it over here. It's awesome. You might see a familiar face in the side here, because that's me doing the IoT videos over there as well. But there's also a ton of other stuff. So if you're here and you are curious about C#, or you're curious about .NET, Xamarin, this is what I work on every day. You can come in and check out these videos. They're free, and they're amazing, and they're an awesome resource. So I'm going to go back. I have a question here. Can I do the same with Arduino? Yes, you can. So I'm going to bring back so this isn't an Arduino, the traditional Arduino board. This is a SparkFun Arduino board. And you may not be able to use the exact code that we're using today with the Arduino, But like I said, you can always look for similar samples, or you can look at the SparkFun IoT. I think it was called the. Let me see if I can find it. SparkFun IoT button is what they called it. I think this is the one I'm looking at. Yep, there is. So it's not exactly the same, but it is enough to sort of get you started and get you following along. But unfortunately, so for today, we're actually not going to be using the Arduino. We're going to use the Raspberry Pi, but the concepts and stuff are kind of similar. So you can try and sort of mix and match and see if sort of, things align. So let's move this away so there's no more confusion. And after setting up the circuit, you'll have noticed I'm not really doing much of any setup on the Raspberry Pi itself. This is because we actually have 2 videos in the IoT series that I was mentioning, which go into detail on how to set up the Raspberry Pi for .NET development. So if you just go through those, it's like really simple and straightforward. The only difference, which I also mentioned is in the note, is in those videos, I have the Raspberry Pi connected to the Ethernet, like to the internet through Ethernet port. Because of my interesting setup today, I couldn't run my Ethernet cable to go this far. So instead, I have it connected to Wi-Fi. So it's the same thing. All you have to do is make sure it has access to interwebs. And once you're done with that, it's all cool. Okay, so next thing is the really cool thing, because I was so excited to get this running. There was a stream yesterday on the same Microsoft developer channel where it was an awesome, again, very great in-depth understanding on how IoT and how Raspberry Pi and how Azure Hub works. And they used IoT Edge in their sample yesterday, which was really interesting. And I learned a lot, and I would totally recommend you guys checking out the videos and, sort of going back to yesterday's stream for that. But if you notice, they also talk about VS Code remote debugging. And the cool part is we are doing it in 2 different ways. So he does it using WSL and rsync, which is awesome. And if you are a Linux person, you will really enjoy that walkthrough. What we are doing sort of builds up on what we walk through in those .NET 101 videos. That is just assuming you have just a Windows laptop, not into Linux development, you're a command line person. The steps I'm showing right now to get the remote debugging working for VS Code runs on that assumption, right? So the way I start is, let's look. So there's a file in this repo. It's called publish.bat. You can click on that link, or you can click up here. So you can look at it here, or I'm going to open it up in VS Code to show you what my completed one looks like. So let's zoom in a bit so everybody can see what's up. Okay, so we have this is basically sort of, so this is a batch file. For those not familiar what .bat means, it's a batch file. And how this works is, it basically, you can just put like a bunch of different commands you wanted to run, and it just sort of automatically run all of them in like by just running publish.bat, as opposed to having to like run each of these commands separately. So there's one way, a very simple way of sort of running an IoT program is so this is a .NET thing. So I would use .NET Publish to create my package. It would be target time of Linux ARM, because we wanted to run on the Raspberry Pi. And once you have that ready, the easiest way to get started is usually just copy that folder, with all of your outputs, the publish folder, onto the Raspberry Pi. And that works for most days. It's really simple. And once it's on the Raspberry Pi, then you just give it, permissions, and it can start running your app. Really simple, really straightforward. And like I mentioned in the .NET video series, that's the, sort of method that we use. It's done over SCP and SSH, and the video walks you through how you get, the SSH address. But basically, you sort of like plug in a screen to your Raspberry Pi, because this has like a sort of a GUI that you can use, and you can use that, and you can get the IP address. I already got the IP address for my Pi, and I have the SSH already set up. So what I did was, this is from so if I go back quickly to the README, and like I said, everything we're doing is already in the README. So I just followed the steps that Scott Hanselman, the awesome Scott Hanselman, already has mentioned on his blog post. So he, like, you can follow the steps that he mentions over here, but I basically just like sort of simplified it a bit, and I just wanted to reduce us having to like go back and forth too many times. So the idea being really simple. It's just a simple batch file. All it does is creates your packages. Push D basically just puts this sort of path of memory in, like this directory path into memory. This does an SCP connection and through over SSH. So basically, you would traditionally just like sort of run this on your command line to get into to SSH into your Raspberry Pi. This sort of just combines it into one form, and then popd just everything in this folder path gets copied over to the Raspberry Pi to this location. So I already have a folder set up on the Raspberry Pi, which is called IIT button. And it's basically where I want all of the published, all of it to just, go into that folder. You can also just leave it on the home directory and it's completely fine. It's like totally up to you. If you like it structured, you can leave it in the IIT button. So if I would, let's open, let me show you what's on the Raspberry Pi right now, right? So if I were to, what's it? So this should have it. Okay, so I'm gonna to show you what's good. So this is, I'm in my Raspberry Pi right now via SSH. So like I said, it's already like comes built in. You don't have to worry about like installing extra things now with WSL. And if you see, there is what is the IIT button folder that's here. And if I were to look inside my IIT button folder, this is all the DLL. So we're doing a complete packaged version of the app because we don't want to worry about having to like sort of have, .NET and stuff. This is kind of what you learn in the .NET, 101C. So again, it's really basic. I'm not doing anything complicated or anything fancy. So this is what's in the Raspberry Pi right now. So I'm going to exit and I'm going to go back into our code. Sweet. So we have this publish batch setup. So this is going to handle, building the app and copying it over to the Raspberry Pi in the simplest form possible. So next up, we have to now get the rest of the remote debugging steps going. So if, like I said, following along in his tutorial. So the next thing is you would go and it's like you would like sort of go in your log into your Raspberry Pi, of course. And there's a couple of steps here. Let me zoom in a little bit and sort of just quickly explain what's going on. So we need to install a VS Remote Debugger. So if you just go in, like just follow these steps as is. So all you're doing is sort of just like installing the Remote Debugger and giving it permissions and rebooting your Raspberry Pi machine. So basically you get a folder that's created in the home directory called VS Debug. And I should have left my connection running because, SSH Pi at 1. Oops, I don't remember my address. I'm just going to grab it from here. Okay, so, oops, what am I doing? Let's get out of here. Okay, I have, there we go. Okay, so let's clean this up. All right, so this VS debug, this is the, right, yeah, this is what gets set up once you have those steps completed successfully. So this basically means there is now a VS debug. It has all the bits that it needs to connect from our Windows machine over here, the Visual Studio I have running here, and be able to deploy and debug on your Raspberry Pi device. Once that is set up, let me see. Then let's go back to the tutorial because that's what I do. And on your Windows machine, like I said, I took the inspiration of the bat file from his bat file. So this is like, we already walked through the bat file. So that's the first thing you want to do, create that batch file. And the second thing is install PuTTY. So PuTTY is a software that helps you sort of like, SSH and talk between two devices. So if you notice, his tutorial does it. So he's using Chocolatey, which is a another software that sort of helps you handle installations and other things on Windows. I did not install my PuTTY through that. I had installed PuTTY like the traditional way. I went to the PuTTY website and I downloaded the exe. So you'd be wondering, how does that change things, right? So you'll be like, just realize I can go back to this view because you guys are still seeing the other view. We don't need the board right now. So yes. So right, so if you've installed it via Chocolatey, like in the tutorials, you will notice we need to set up a couple of like JSON files on VS Code to get this to work. So there's a few, so that's what these two sections are. So this basically is the tasks.json and this is the launch.json. So he sets these up specific to your environment. So let me show you what's specific to my environment. And again, this is all also on the GitHub already. So the first thing he sets up is the task file. So in the task file, what we have here is this is the default one that you get. So when you open a task by default in a .NET project, this is what you'll see, just like what happens when you do the build process. What happens, so it does, the build and of the CS proj, the usual, .NET build stuff. What we add extra is over here. So we create a new task called publish. And the purpose of this new task publish is basically to just run that batch file. So the batch file lives in the same directory. So that's what this is. That's what's happening over here. So in the workspace folder, in the root itself, I just pointed to that batch file. And that's why we set up the batch file first, so it's ready and good to go. You can also like do a test of the batch file by running it on command line and make sure stuff's behaving as it needs to. And the next thing that I set up was the launch.json. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. So when you open this again by default, you will just see the first two configurations loaded in. And what you have to do is the code snippet on his blog post, or if you want to follow what's in my GitHub, in this file, this is what is extra. This configuration is the new one that we're adding, which is not found by default. And in this, what's happening is, you basically have a couple of things. So you'll have set up, if you're following his tutorials or you're following my README, which is up here. So it explains like how you need to get, Raspberry, you need to have .NET installed on your Raspberry Pi and things like that. So these are the download links and the setup links for that. Again, it's like super straightforward, and I have all the links on how I set that up here. It's like it's like a tool. It's not complicated at all. All of the explanations of how to get that installed is in there. So you basically just need to point to your .NET program here. The next thing that the next thing that I set up was, so remember I showed you the path to the folder that I'm copying it over to. That's what I added here. So just put the path to where, the DLL exists that you needed to debug with, because we're telling it how and where to start the debugging from. And the main difference you'll notice is, like I said, he used Chocolatey. So he put a different path to where his PuTTY is installed. I did it in the traditional, just go to the website, download and install. So this is where my PuTTY is installed. So you can always check where it's installed and put the path to it over here based on your environment. And the last thing is, since this is going over SSH, I put in the password and the SSH address to my Raspberry Pi. And the last bit, like you can see, is like what I just showed you on the Raspberry Pi itself, where the debugger installed itself. So with a combination of those blog post links and just sort of following through, just like, where things are installed, that's all I had to do to get, VS debugging running. And it was a game changer. It's super nice once you get the debugging going. So what I have here is let's see if the debugger is running or not is basically my first check, right? So let me get the output window back up again. So let's clean this up. We don't have Azure IoT right now. So debug console, there we go. Okay, so what we have here, if you want to see, is this is the sample Blinky code. So this is, and where this exists is, let's go check that out. So we're not in create Azure service. We're going to verify that this is working. So what I wanted to show was right at the bottom here, I have some extra resources. So this takes you to the .NET IoT. So if you've not been here, this is, oops, not here, here. .NET IoT, this is like the main GitHub repo where all of the .NET Core IoT library work happens. So there's a lot of good and great information on how to get started, how to, you can get the link to that IoT 101 series that I was talking about, documentation samples, how to set up a Raspberry Pi, where to buy a Raspberry Pi, what are the different, so so the things that we're using in today's samples, for example, are the system device GPIO. Because like I said, the board, so let me go into this amazing view I have. So this pin, all of the pins over here are called the GPIO pins, right? So to interact with these pins, the library exists. That's the library that we're using, and that's the using statement and the NuGet package already in the program. So when we go into the code, I will show you that. And if you are using, something like a temperature sensor or any sort of custom, device component that you want to add to your circuit, you'll probably most definitely find bindings for that in here. So oops, that's not the one I meant to click into. Devices. There we go. So this has, all the different like sensors, most of the popular ones. It's community driven and the .NET team works on it. So it's really extensive, as you can see, and they're always working on stuff over here. Like for example, if we're using the temperature sensor, that's where you'll find it. That's the BME. I use the BME 280 in sample. So whichever device you're working on, you can most probably find, the code for it here. And that also includes like samples and stuff in there. So what I'm running right now actually is the LED blink sample. So the code I have in there is from this repo over here. Like I said, there's a bunch of different ways you can get started. So I'm doing it using the VS Code, I'm publishing it to the Raspberry Pi and debugging it in VS Code itself because I wanted to try something new and different. But you can also do it via Docker, and that's what we talk about in the series. And this is the traditional way of doing it. That is, you copy or you clone this repo on the Raspberry Pi itself. That's assuming you have .NET Core already installed. And then you can just like sort of build and run it directly via command line on the Raspberry Pi. So if you come in here, and this is the code that I just grabbed for testing out if the VS Code debugger is running correctly or not. So I'm going to go back up here on our checklist. So let's confirm that the setup is running. So all right, so I have this in here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the build task to make sure everything is working correctly. So it's built it, everything is good. Then I wish I had like KeyCaster running, but the keyboard shortcut, if you're new or like me who tend to forget, it's Control-Shift-P on Windows. And I'm going to now run the task publish, and that basically just runs this batch file that I was talking about. So if you notice in the output window, what's happening is it's connected to my Raspberry Pi up here, if you notice, connected. And now it's sort of just dumping everything from that file path, which is the publish folder. It's copying all of it over to my Raspberry Pi. Another thing to note now is if you'll notice, it's now going to like sort of copy each file. It doesn't do like a smart copy in this, because like I said, this is a very basic setup. I didn't want to do anything complicated. I wanted to make this an easy onboard for anyone who's just coming in and trying to learn how things work. So there's nothing extra fancy. If you want to do something smarter than this, which doesn't like copy over every single file all the time, you can use rsync, and that basically is a smarter copy where it only copies over stuff like files that change, and not like the whole publish folder every single time. But today's code and the Blinky sample and the button sample are not that big. They're kind of small, so it doesn't take too much of time. And I like talking, as you can see, so I can probably just keep yapping through this whole time and just watch as it copies over all the different DLLs onto my Raspberry Pi. Okay, so that is done. The copy is complete, and now if you notice, now let me go into the debugger view. On the top left, you can pick, so these are the different, configurations from the launch.json. And I'm going to use the remote one because that's the one that's connected to the Raspberry Pi. And I'm on the correct OBS scene. So if all of that works correctly, it should, now it's in the debug mode. And as you can see, it's blinky and the LED light is blinking. And someone will be like, haha, this is totally fake. It's not. So let me throw in, so let's stop this. Let's throw in a debug point, and it should hit that breakpoint in the debug mode once it's there. There we go. So it's hit. I can like step in like I would do in a regular .NET code. And there you go. So there we have Blinky. So we have VS Code running. So that's the first 2 steps in today's tutorial / demo going. Okay, so the next bit. Okay, so we have this going. My LED is going to just stay on now. If someone is ever curious, like this is a quick fact in case you're curious. What does the resistor do? The resistor basically prevents something like this, where the LEDs are notorious. They can suck out all the power from whatever source they're connected to. So the resistor basically stops it from doing that. And if you ever have a circuit where you're like, oh man, why is my LED not turning on? You probably just have the LED like flipped over to the other side. These things are really hard to destroy. So just flip it over. You probably just have like the positive and negative end, turned the other way. I'm telling this to you as if it's a life story. I did the same mistake a couple of days ago and kept wondering why my code wasn't working. So anyways, VS Code debugger is going. It's working. Next thing we have in my README says, create your Azure services. Awesome. We can totally create our Azure services, but before we can do that, we need some code that interacts with the button. So in the essence of time, I'm actually just going to copy over the completed project. So this is in the space. This is the code that's already in the GitHub repo. And it just has a couple of fill in the blanks that we get to play right now, which is awesome. But let me show you what's actually happening. So first off, those familiar in .NET, this is our our awesome friend, the CS Proj file. These are the NuGets that we use. So for the LED Blinky sample, you need the GPIO, like I said, because we're triggering the different GPIO pins. We need this to control the button as well. What next we're going to pull in right now is the Azure Devices Client. So this is the client library that we need to connect to IoT Hub. So this will basically, so what's going to happen now is, like in the README, we're going to connect the Raspberry Pi to IoT Hub. To do that, this is the library that sort of handles all of the complicated connection stuff for us. So all we have to do is just provide it with a connection string and the device name, and it has inbuilt, methods that we're going to use. And we need JSON because the message that we're going to send over is going to be a JSON object. So we're using Newtonsoft JSON just to handle the JSON serializing. Sweet. Okay, so let's go back and see what's going on in the code. So all the stuff over here is basically just part of our Azure setup. So we'll come back to this in just a second. Let's actually see what's going on in the actual, how are we driving the logic. So let's get rid of this. So this is, I basically just modified the Blinky sample to work for this. So if you're ever confused on where is all this coming from, just do a comparison between what's happening in Blinky and what's happening over here. So let's get rid of this. So many commented lines. Okay, here we go. So first off, isolate the pins. So like I said, we specifically have the 2 connections made over here. So my LED is connected to pin 6. My button, which is over here, is connected to pin 17. And when connecting the button, so if you notice, this is what the button looks like, right? So it's got like 4 legs. And if you notice, I have it like sort of in between over here. So if I show it on this breadboard, this is how I have it connected between the 2 legs on each side. This is because so let's pull this out. In a button, between the 2 legs, so these 2 legs and these, so they are sort of connected internally. So connecting a wire from here to here adds no purpose. You're creating a through and through circuit. There's no switch power. So like the way a button works is when you press it, like if you, depending on how you're writing your code logic, push up or push up or push down controls how the current will flow in the circuit, right? So, or push up and push down depending on, again, the logic and your device library based on how you're like handling it can control, the change or sort of like the event that you're listening to. If you talk about like a client app, so that's why you'll notice there's one wire that goes up here, another wire that goes up here, just to make sure like the current flows through and I'm actually able to read, high and low input and output, values from it. So These are for isolating the pins. These are just sleep values, just to make sure that the code is not running too fast and we're able to sort of capture and process input output. Next up, so using the controller, this comes directly from the system, the GPIO library that I mentioned. There's two things happening. So the first thing, you want to open up pin connections. So in this, we're opening up the LED because this is just for me to get some visual feedback on what's going on with the button. Next up we have is the button, and we're setting the button for input. So if you notice, there's two different setups. So the LED is just doing output, and we are using the button for input value. So we want to get feedback if the state of the button is high or low. And this is, if we were running this on console, this would sort of kill it, but we're kind of not using this part of the code because we're going to be triggering the debug and everything from VS Code itself. Next up is the loop. So in an Arduino, you would also do the same logic. It's the same logic here in this Raspberry Pi. Everything happens in the life cycle of this loop because the way of this program is, it's very basic, it's very simple. We want this activity to keep happening again and again and again as long as the life of the program runs. It's same for, if you look at the temperature sensor samples, the same thing happens while this loop is running. It grabs certain values from your Raspberry Pi. So first up, I have a variable that's doing reading the button pin value. So like I said, we isolate the button and we try and find what the button value is. I have a console write line because I was trying to figure out, is the button value by default high or low? That's why I have it I have it like coming out over here just for it to see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this line out for now because we want to just do a local test to see if this is running. I'm going to also comment out all of these lines of code because this is when we actually do the IIT Hub connection. So let's first do like a basic run to make sure that this is working locally. So idea being, if it reads the button value, we're going to do console write line because I saw a really nice post on Twitter today where someone was like, you have all these amazing debug tools and yet we still use console write lines to debug. So that's kind of what I am doing also. And we have all of these values. So we have the pin, we're going to wait when the pin value is low. That's when I want the LED to start blinking. And then we do the final hooking up to Azure, to IIT Hub. That's when the message will get sent. So let me quickly build this. So let's do a quick test. Oops, it doesn't like something. What does it not like? Oh yeah, I have all of this extra helper functions down here, which obviously we don't have it hooked up. So I'm just gonna get this out of the way. There we go. So let's build. Nope, still not happy. What else? Doesn't have something called device ID. Am I setting the device ID somewhere? But I commented that line out. Did I not? Did I not? Let's see. Button pin. Oh, there we go. In this class. All right, let's build. And I'm gonna publish this to the Raspberry Pi. This is gonna copy over all of the stuff. And yep, so while this is copying over, if anyone has any questions so far on what's going on, shoot them in the chat window and I can answer them while we wait for this to copy over. Okay, no questions so far. That's fine. It's cool. So I'll wait for this to copy. This is where rsync is actually really cool and really smart. It saves you a bunch of time in this step because at this point it would just simply copy over the DLL and not all these extra, because these are the same and they'd already be on the device already. So any tips for someone looking into becoming a developer intern at Microsoft? We have our intern application website. You can always go ahead and apply. The intern program is really awesome. I was actually an intern in Microsoft, and it's really great. It's an awesome program. So yeah, you should definitely apply. Just go to our, I think if you just, I think search for Microsoft internships and you can just go and apply on the website. Okay, another question that we have in is this Pi running Windows IoT? So no, this is a slightly different approach. We are doing everything with the .NET SDK and .NET Core. So this is actually not running Windows IoT. This Raspberry Pi, and if you follow, like I said, the prerequisites from the 101 series, this Pi is actually just running Raspbian, and I installed .NET Core on it. That's it. And I installed .NET Core just to get the debugging to run. It wasn't even, I didn't need the .NET Core to be on it for any of this to run. If you want debugging with Visual Studio for Code, then you need the .NET Core on it. And would this run with Linux? So again, everything we're doing right now, this is all .NET. We're using C#. So this is built. So this is on the Raspberry Pi. It has Raspbian, which is a version of Linux. So yes, this would run on Linux, but it's just that you have to figure out how your environment would be set up and make sure you're building and you have the correct sort of targets to build your program and make sure it runs on your Raspberry Pi. So, okay, so like we said, so I have my button hooked up, and if all goes well, I'm going to see if, oops, did I mess something up? Let's see. All right, there you go. So I have the button pressed down right now, and as you can see, it's putting out my debug messages for button pressed, and the LED is blinking, and I'm going to let the button go, and the button state is going to return to high. So this is kind of just for like me to understand what is going on with the button. Is it is the default state high or low? Okay, excellent. So code is working, everything is good. Yep, it is, and that's what the GitHub link is. I mean, that's what is in my GitHub, and that's the link that I opened up to like understand how do I get these things to work. So the sample is just a modified version from the sample in the IoT Net Core. Let me actually just quickly go there. We might go over by a couple of minutes today. Megan can let me know if that's all right, but nope. Clicking too many things. There we go. So this is the .NET Core GitHub repo. Boop. You can check that out. It's awesome work, open source. You can, if there's a device you're using and there's no bindings for it, feel free to submit a PR. All right, so we've got this working locally. Connections are good. I did not mess up the circuit, which is great. All right, so next up, like the GitHub tutorial says, because that is my source of truth right now. All right, so next up, we have to connect this to IoT Hub, right? So let's go uncomment all of that code that I just commented out to get the local thing to run. So first up here, we need to have certain things. So to create the connection to IoT Hub, like I said, the library handles a lot of it because this is, again, a very, very simple, basic case. I'm not doing a very complicated setup over here. So all you need to provide is your device connection string and your device ID. We'll get these values when we create the IoT Hub on Azure and add our device to it. So to note, this process that I'm doing, this is manually registering a device. The part 2, like I mentioned on Thursday with my coworker Ben, when we will write the Xamarin Client app for this, we'll be looking at device provisioning service, and we'll be doing something known as, so device provisioning service, that's what handles this, provisioning devices. When you say provisioning devices, that's just like a complicated way of just saying registering a device to the service, because it's a secure connection. You don't want, other devices trying and talking to your IoT Hub. So we will look at how to do auto device provisioning. That means you don't have to manually come in and, set up this device string and device IDs. So what you can do with the auto provisioning stuff that we will talk about on Thursday is you can run it on any device. You can run our app that we will be building, the client app, on any device, and it'll automatically provision it and add it to your IoT Hub service. So all of the manual stuff I'll be doing right now, you can avoid that by just using the auto provisioning service. But since this is just like a basic startup one, I didn't want to do that. So you provide it with the connection string and the device ID. You create an instance of the device client. And this is in the NuGet package that's already in the project. And all it needs to create, so we're going to use the method to create it from a connection string. So we're going to provide it that device connection string. And we're going to use the transfer type MQTT. It's a default, messaging protocol that's inbuilt. Next up, so these two things are actually part of my logic. I'm going to drop this down to 5, and I'll explain just what's happening over here. So this message ID, just to keep track of the message that we're going to send up to IoT Hub, that's my message counter for that. The message threshold is just, I didn't want to spam IoT Hub and the Logic app with like a gazillion different messages. So I'm just sort of like putting a threshold that every 5th message from the Raspberry Pi, that's the one that we will send up to IoT Hub to process. And you'll be wondering, oh, why don't you just spam IoT Hub with messages? Depending on what kind of application you're making, it's totally acceptable to spam IoT Hub with messages. Since the aim of this is to tweet something, and the Twitter Logic app has like it has a set limit on it that you cannot tweet. Like Twitter itself won't let you tweet like a gazillion messages in 1 second or in a minute. So just sort of adjust the logic. I put some thresholds in here so this demo works. So next up, what we have here is we have a method here called send message to IoT Hub. This is basically, I have created this in the code. And what I'm doing here is I am creating a custom string. So I'm saying, hello from .NET IoT, and I'm grabbing the date and time for today. And what that method does is over here. So there's 2 other bits of code left. So let's talk about this telemetry object here. So telemetry, this is the object that we'll be sending up to IoT Hub. You can call this class message object, telemetry, whatever you want to. I just called it telemetry. I don't know why. Probably I thought it'd be cool. Let's go with that. I thought that'd be cool. So the main bits of like, and you get to decide what message you want to send up to IoT Hub to make it useful data when you're processing it from IoT Hub, right? So I gave it certain unique identifiers like, the device ID and the message ID, just so when I was sort of parsing through the data later on for the Logic app, I understand what it is and where it's coming from. So this is just a regular, simple JSON object. So we have the message data that's coming, that's this string that I'm creating up here. The message ID, the device ID, and the device ID is a string that we set right up top. And in this send message method, we take the string that's arriving, we create a new telemetry object, JSON serialize it. I'm going to put in a copy of the message that's going through, just because, like I said, even though we're in an amazing IDE that lets me debug these things with like a breakpoint, I still want my debug console to give me some sort of information. Then we create a message. This message is coming from the device client library that we're using. This is provided to us. So we give it the whole message. So you can give it, like I said, so this JSON object, you can make a custom object as complicated or as not complicated as you want. And so if suppose you're using the temperature sensor, you can have, your humidity and your temperature readings and things like that. So whatever you want, you can make your custom object, pass it as a message. Only extra thing I'm doing over here is I'm adding a property, which is action tweet. The reason I'm doing this is I had a grand plan as part of my, button of destiny. I would have 2 or 3 buttons of destiny. And I was like, hey, how do I know which button does what? Or how would I differentiate what, I want each button's trigger to do? I could maybe make one button tweet, the other button send a message. Send an email. The third button maybe send an SMS. So properties, you can add properties that sort of help you differentiate. Like it adds a little bit more extra, data to the message being sent up. So adding, so I have connected tweet to this just to show you as an example. If you have multiple buttons or multiple different types of data going up, you can attach properties, and we'll see how to parse them later on when we create the message queue. All right, so what's happening after that is, so this is the little extra bit of logic that I added, where if it is, for every regular message that's being sent, that's being created, I'm just going to like print out the event message. But for every, so the message threshold right now is set to 5. So for every 5th message, we're going to send that to IoT Hub. And we're going to set the message ID, and it's going to reset the message ID back to 0, because we're incrementing it every time. So, it's like message 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's going to go back to 0. So let me get this built. And so I think it's Command Shift B, which is the keyboard shortcut. One day I will remember all the correct ones. I jump between Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code and Windows and Mac. So I never have I should, in all goodness, actually set everything up. Oh, whoops! I just realized something. We're building everything, but I haven't set up the connection string stuff. So let's actually go into Azure and do that. But yes, so keyboard shortcuts, learn them. They're good. Okay, so this is Azure Portal. It's set to dark mode, so I apologize if you're not able to see. I think I can switch it right now. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Wait, I know how to change the theme. Much better. Okay, so this is Azure Portal. This is my resource group, which I created for this IoT. I've already created my IoT hub. If you want to see how to create a new hub, we have amazing documentation that explains it to you. So I linked it to the exact spot where you need to start going to Azure Portal. It walks you through the whole process. At the end of it, you will be where I am, where you have created the hub and it's ready to use. We're going to go over to the next step. We're going to register a device in IoT Hub. So, oh my God, I should stop doing that. Okay, so we are going to add my device to the IoT Hub. So going to go in here. On the left, we have IoT devices. So, and then right now it's got my Raspberry Pi already in here, the way it would work is you just go new, give it a name, and that's it. You hit save. We use all of the other default options over here. But since I already have this set up, I'm just going to go in. Once you have it set up, so this is my device ID, so I'm going to copy this, and I need my connection string. So I'm going to grab the primary connection string. Let's go back into Visual Studio Code. So the first thing, okay, cool little keyboard shortcut. If you do Windows V, you get the clipboard manager in Windows 10. So I'm going to use that. So I'm going to use my connection string that I copied. And the next thing I'm going to add is the device ID that I used. So my Raspberry Pi button. Sweet. Now we have everything connected in here. So let me build. So building is pretty fast because it's a tiny .NET application. So I'm going to hit publish now. And while this is publishing, there's another part of the README that we will look at, which is really cool, which is, does IoT Hub, okay, interesting question that came in. Does IoT Hub handle the MQTT, or what exactly is needed? Is IoT Hub needed for? Excellent question. I could have easily created like a app service or something that sort of handles this data for me. The advantage of using IoT Hub for something like this, even though this is a really basic, simple sample, IoT Hub handles with the client, with the device client library that we're already using. We are using the MQTT protocol. So if I have set the transport type to the MQTT, so it's already going to use the message queuing. So I'm sort of piggybacking off the message queuing, which kind of does a lot of the stuff that I already need. It handles the device provisioning for me, IoT Hub. I also get cool things like if we go back here, I get things like, so you get a lot of the cool stuff that's already built into Insights. There we go. So you get a lot of things already sort of built into. So if it's a much more complicated project, there's a lot more devices, a lot more complicated use set. You can get things like your activity log. You can control which devices are in, out. You can scale it to go higher, to go lower. You can do things like you can come and look in at the metrics. I don't have any sort of you can set up a sort of metric chart to see how things are coming in, how things are going out, have alerts. You can have logs custom to this. So it's a very powerful tool that lets you do a lot of different things. And MQTT, it handles it automatically out of the box for you. So like I said, you can just have any sort of custom payload that you can send over and then parse it on the other side. So that's kind of the advantage of using IoT Hub, is what I would say. And I think it's kind of hard to highlight the more complicated advantages in the setup we have right now. But in the example that we go over on Thursday, it's a little bit more of a fun use case. You can use it as a tracking system is what we created. So in those kind of situations with multiple devices, IoT Hub is really powerful in that sense. Okay, awesome. So what I've done is I just deployed the app with the IoT Hub connection in here, and button is going. I'm going to press my button and see that my messages are going through. So if you notice, that's my debug output coming in. All of the stuff that happened up here is basically just the client, device client, like sort of creating an instance of itself with the provided values. And now I'm getting my output, so message 5, and then after message 5, it's sending a message to IoT Hub. And this is going back to printing out, my 1, 2, 3, 4 messages. So I'm going to leave this button for a second. I want to sort of make sure and confirm that these messages are sort of getting delivered to my IoT Hub. There's a really cool way to do it. There's an extension in, this is the extension. Yes, it's called Azure IoT Hub. I already have this installed. And what that does is you can connect it to your Azure subscription, and then you see your devices line up here. I'm going to start monitoring the built-in event point. I'm going to start this monitoring, and then once this is up and running, okay, so it is ready, and then I'm going to now switch between my debug console where I have, okay, so this is on message 4, message 5, and now it has sent a message. It should have sent a message. Let's see if it shows up here. Come on, messaging, send. Okay, let's restart this. Okay, let's deploy my app again. I have this monitoring Azure IoT Hub. So this may not work on me. Let's see. This is the fun part of live coding, isn't it? So I'm going to press my button down and see, and I'm going to stare at it to see if it got any of my messages. It should be listening to my endpoint and oh man, I was hoping this would work. Well, what ideally happens is you'll be listening to the endpoint and you'll see the messages pop up over here. It's not doing it right now, but I promise it works. I am not making this up. But yes, in a good day, you'll see the same messages that we're seeing here. They sort of pop up on that side. But I'm fairly certain this is working. This is good. I'm confident my IoT Hub connection is successful. I'm going to move on to the fun part. So now that we've got, so at this point, our Raspberry Pi went from just a button to a smart button. So this is now actually connected to my IoT Hub. It's getting messages. So let's try and add some smart to this logic, right? So I'm going to go back to my dashboard. So this is my resource group. And we are at the point where we've connected it to, it's connected to the IoT Hub. It's sending messages. I'm going to add a logic app over here. So to get this to work, I actually combined two different, like our MS documentation is awesome, right? So I basically combined two doc tutorials that I found. So the first one is, you'll notice it's kind of doing something very similar to what we've got running. So this basically connects it to the Azure IoT Hub, and then it goes to the Logic app. Only difference being they choose to send an email service. I'm going to change it up to tweet. And you'll be wondering, why did I decide to tweet? I was like, hey, they already have a tutorial on how to do an email, so let's learn how to tweet. And I kind of wanted to learn how to tweet. And to see how the Twitter connector works, so these are called Logic App connections. I just went into the Logic App connectors docs, and I found their tutorial on how to connect it to Twitter. So what I'm going to be doing is, I'm just going to follow this tutorial step by step. Right, so we've got the connection running. It's working as expected. So I'm just going to go in and create the service bus stuff. So first thing they need is to create a service bus connection. So I'm going to add a resource. So I'm just going to type service bus. Sweet. Let's create one. I'm going to, okay. Nope, not the one. This is the one. Okay. Let's follow this side by side. Right, so I'm going to create a new one. It's I have selected my, did I open up the wrong tutorial again? Of course I did. Let me go grab the right one. There we go. Okay, so step one, create service bus. All right, so create a namespace. Okay, so let's call this Raspberry. No, I call it, so let's call it my Pi IoT button bus. This is the same location, and it says pricing, choose basic, so we will choose basic, and review, create. All right, review and create. That was pretty straightforward. Like I said, super easy, super straightforward. Nothing too complicated. So gonna wait for the deployment to finish. And that's when, once the deployment is complete, that's when we can add in a couple of cool steps. So service bus is basically just sort of like, imagine it to be, well, not a bus, but more like just an area. So like a resource area where all of your messages that you are sending over to the IoT hub, they can get piped to you. You can just like sort of just send it over to them. You don't, service bus is not the only way to sort of, so another way to think of it is a staging area for all your data. So again, service bus is again not the only way to do this. On Thursday, we'll be doing it, we'll be displaying, again, it's all about what you want to do with the data that once it's up in IoT hub. So on Thursday, we'll be doing something a little different. On Thursday, we'll be using Stream Analytics, which is another type of staging area that you can use to sort of control the data that's coming in and decide what to do with it afterwards. So, okay, so next thing it says is open the resource group. Done that. Go to queues. Go to queue. I'm going to create and I'm going to give it, not my name. I'm going to call this IoT button queue. I'm very creative with my names. Okay, so is it just, I like that. My kind of joke, service bus stops. Yes, totally is. But it's super powerful. It is super powerful. There's also a service bus desktop app that you can visualize your data with. It is really amazing. It's a really powerful service. All right, so we have created the queue. Back on the service bus namespace pane. Oh, great. Okay, select queue, then select. Nope, I feel like I missed a step. I'm going to go back. Okay, let's see. What do we have? Service bus, we created a queue. Queue pane. Back on the service bus namespace, under entities, select queues. Open the service bus queue. I was right. Okay, in shared access policies, we're going to add a new policy. So let's call this the IoT button policy. So like I said, I'm equally new to the space as everyone else. So I like to name my things as much as I can follow through. So this whole demo is called IoT button. So I'm going to name everything as IoT button or Pi IoT button. All right, so we've created the service bus, we've created an access policy. The idea of all of these steps is basically, so we've created a queue which has all the data in it, and we've created an access policy that services can now look at the data in the queue and then do things to it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a custom endpoint. So if my VS Code demo would have worked a little better on my side, that was using the default endpoint. What we're going to create now is a custom endpoint, which is going to, so what's going to happen now is we're going to create this endpoint that will listen for that action called tweet, and then that will trigger the logic app. So this is that's the last two bits that we're hooking up right now. So we're going to go, so it says go to the IoT hub. So this is my IoT hub. And under messaging, I need to create, I think I know why it didn't work on VS Code right now. Because I think from my practice run earlier, I still have my old routing set up. And oh boy, come on, Azure. Oops. Why does it not like my resource? There we go. Okay. When stuff, what's it? The good old Windows mantra, just have you try turning it off and on. So, okay, next thing, under messaging. Let's go to messaging. Message routing. And I bet you, yep, there we go. This is my test. And that is why the VS Code IoT, so the listener that I was trying to listen to over here, the monitor, so this listens to the default endpoint by default. That's the reason why it didn't work, because I had a custom one set up already over here from my practice run of this. So let's delete this, and we'll set up a brand new one, because we're doing all new now. I want to prove to you this works. So as soon as my hub, okay, I'm going to click out and click back in, and hopefully it is deleted. Okay, sweet. Okay, so let's add a new routing point, right? So message routing. So I'm going to hit custom endpoints. I'm going to hit, yep, I have all of my, these are everything from my practice run is all still here. So no wonder my VS Code wasn't happy with that endpoint. Okay, so same thing. I'm going to go back. Just want to refresh everything so it's like clean. Okay, cool. So custom endpoints, it says, and then we're going to hit add. So let's hit add. Create a service bus queue. Okay, give it an endpoint name. Excellent. So I'm going to call it IoT button endpoint. Okay. Service bus namespace. This is our bus that we created. And in service bus queue, it should have my IoT button queue. Huzzah for my amazing naming. I remember everything. I'm still laughing at service bus stop. That's such a good joke. Okay. All right. So we hit create. So this, like I said, so this is creating the queue, right, of all of the messages that are coming in from the Raspberry Pi. We are now going to go into the route bin. This is where we create the route, right? So let's call this Twitter, no, IoT button tweet route, right? From the endpoint, we're going to pick, let's see what to say, the endpoint that you created. So this is the built-in one, so I'm going to pick the service bus one, the one we just created, right? Data source is the telemetry messages, because that's what we use. We had MQTT set up by default, right? And the routing query, this is where the fun comes in. So if you remember, I had the property in the code set up. So right at the bottom here, there we go. So we had the property of action tweet. That's what I'm going to listen for over here. So I'm going to set up the service bus to wait for action equals tweet. And I think I used a lowercase tweet. Yep, lowercase tweet. So it's only going to create, so it's basically going to filter out messages with the action tweet on it. So you can have this trigger to be true or false. You can have it to be, like I said, if you have multiple buttons or multiple things, you can have it to do temperatures. You can have it to like filter on whatever you need. So awesome. Oops. Right here. Okay, so that's it. So we've got the routing set up. So this is now ready to like sort of filter through all of the messages that are coming in, and it's going to grab all the messages that have tweet in it. Next thing is to actually set up the logic app. So let's go do that. So we go back to our resource group, and we're going to add. So this time it says now we're going to the meat of things. We're almost done, very close to completing. This is literally the last step. We're going to create that Twitter logic app. So in this tutorial, so it says create a resource. It's the correct thing. I'm going to call this tweet logic app. And everything is, yep, this is the correct location. Okay, review and create. So I'm going to let this complete the deployment. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee. All right, this is fairly quick. This is super. I like this part. This is my favorite part of the whole process, because now we get to tweet things. So when you click on the Logic App resource, it takes you to what is called the Logic App Designer. Okay, and this is where we say farewell to this amazing tutorial that we've been following, because if we follow through the steps here, you can learn how to send an email on your trigger, but that's not what we are doing, because we're too cool for email. Who emails anymore, right? We're going to tweet. So I'm going to pull up that other tutorial that I had pinned up here. And it basically, so in this, if you notice, it just like sort of walks you through how to set up a thing for tweeting. But the nice part is Logic app interface is very easy to follow. So I'm going to go to the resource again because I clicked out of the Logic app. So this is the Logic app designer, right? And if you notice, it already has a bunch of like common triggers. So what we're going to do actually is we're going to start with a blank Logic app. This is because we have a couple of like extra things to like set up, because we want to first set up where the data is coming from and then set up our trigger. It's a two-step process. So the first step, our data is coming through Service Bus. So in Service Bus, I'm going to select when one or more messages arrive in a queue, autocomplete, right? And so you'll see this is the Service Bus. This is the shared access key that we created. So I'm going to click on that. Oh, I need to give it a connection name, of course. So as you can see, I've already done this before, but I'm going to give it a proper name now. There's no more testing. So this is IoT button tweet. Let's call it that. Let's create. So this is step number 1. So this is basically where you pick your queue. With maximum message count from the tutorial itself, it says it recommends putting in 175 as the maximum messages in the bus. Next up, how often do you want to check for items? So I don't want to spam my personal, because I'm going to connect this to my personal Twitter feed. I don't want to spam it with like messages. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it in, I'm going to put in the check for like every 30 minutes. Is that it? Is all I want to do? Yes, that's all. I want to leave it at 30 minutes. Okay, awesome. So at this point, you'd be saying, okay, let's add in our next step. This is where we pick our next connector. We're going to pick Twitter because that's where we want it to go. So I'm going to pick Twitter. I'm going to pick post a tweet. You need to sign into your Twitter, of course. So it opens up the little auth window open here. I'm going to pull it to the side because I don't want the world to know my password. I should have. Do you guys use password managers? Password managers are awesome, really good. I'm very new to this Twitter, new to this Twitch stuff. So I don't have like the fancy, I'll just be back and I'm going to quickly put in a secret value here. So I'm going to do it the manual way. So I'm here on the side copying over my Twitter password. But hey, it's pretty, we're so close now. So we are almost done with this connection. As soon as I type my Twitter credentials and we get logged in. Okay. All right. So I'm going to authorize the app. It's authorized us in. So now we're going to create a new parameter. So this is where the fun starts. We are going to set the tweet text, right? And the, so the text to be posted, this is, so you'll notice here it's starting to like pre-populate some dynamic content. So this is like the default. So since you already made a service bus queue connection, from the connection type, it sort of figured out that, okay, this is a message from a service bus queue. So these are like the default, types that you usually have address, like you have access to from for a service bus object. So, like the session ID, the content, so one would think that, hey, of course, my service bus, we sent in that JSON object as a message. Obviously, I want to post my Twitter content. Sadly, I wish it was this straightforward. If we just leave this tweet text as is, it's going to dump the whole JSON object in there, which is not very pretty to look at, right? So we're going to do we're going to add 2 more sort of connectors in here to parse through the JSON, which I thought I was very proud I figured this out, and I want to share this with all of you. So the first thing we're going to do is initialize this, and we're going to initialize it. So I'm going to look at my notes here so I don't get this wrong. So we're going to initialize the variable and initialize variable. That's the one we need. So I'm going to call this my JSON object. It is JSON type string, and the value is going to be the content of the message. So basically this means is create a, there we go, one password. That's nice. Fun fact, Just small detour, but fun fact. Talking of password managers, if you guys have not checked out Bitwarden, Bitwarden is an open source password manager, and they use Xamarin for their mobile apps. So, haha, .NET Xamarin goodness. Okay, so back to this. All right, so what's happening here is we're going to initialize a variable here that I'm calling it my JSON object, and it's of type string. And I'm going to give it the JSON content that is from our, the IIT Hub message that we have. Next up, one last thing left, and now we need to parse this JSON. So, okay, while it searches for my action, nope, I'm pretty sure this is already there. Let me type JSON instead. There you go. It's called parse JSON data operation. Okay, so now we need to give it an input value. So input is going to be the variable from before. Okay. All right. I just realized I'm going to go back to this. Okay, excuse me 1 second. All right. Talking for 1 hour straight can do this to you. Okay. All right. So we are parsing our JSON. So we have a JSON object, isolating it from the message. We only grabbing the JSON object that we're passing, putting it here. And now we need to create the schema. So if you are a JSON expert, you can totally write the JSON on your own. I am not. So what I do is I generally debug.writelines are a godsend. There is a reason why they are. Oh, what do you know? It was on a delay. My messages are actually here. Who would have guessed, guys? Who would have guessed? So they're actually here. So this is the content that we're passing through. This is the exact object I wanted to parse. So I'm just going to grab this value here. This. And this is what I'm going to provide to. So if you don't have this here, by the way, if you messed up like me a little bit and don't see your messages, that's being received, you can go to the debug console and grab the string message. This is the JSON body, like what we're writing out over here, the sending value. This is exactly what it is. It just needs a sample value, so it'll auto-generate the schema for you. So I'm going to go back here. Nope. Where was I? Was I here? Oh. It doesn't like it when I move away. It just doesn't. Okay, so I wonder if it still has my. Do I have to recreate? Oh no, I didn't save it. This is why you're supposed to hit save. I knew there was a step. Okay, it's no problem. I'm going to start again. I vaguely remember my values. So IIT button. Put the message down to like 175. Check every 20. Yeah, 20 minutes is fine. 20 minutes is good. Okay. This is where you hit save, so you don't, miss out on all of the awesomeness that I just did. Anyway, so I'm going to do, what was it? Variable, initialize. Let's redo a couple of the steps. Variables, initialize variable, call it my JSON object. Hit string, and the value is the content, which is in my clipboard right now. Hit save. Next up, let's parse that JSON. This data operations, parse JSON. Okay, so the content is my JSON object, the variable from up here. This is where we were. So this is where I want to copy paste my schema. So I'm going to go this. I'm going to paste the payload in here. And it will very nicely create the schema for me. Super straightforward. Now, only thing we need to remember is we're trying to pull out the property that's called message data. So first, let me hit save again so I don't lose my progress. Last step, I'm going to bring back the Twitter action. I'm going to post a tweet. Please don't make me sign in again. Okay, it is already connected. So I'm going to select tweet text, right? And if you notice in the parse JSON, it's already pulling out the two potential string values that can be used, right? So I'm going to just automatically select message data and save it. And we are done. This is the logic app. It's set up. So it's So in the tutorial, it goes from here, from the queue directly to sending an email. I wanted to customize the data that I wanted to, like, I just didn't want to just put the whole JSON object in there. We have a nice message that's coming from the Raspberry Pi. I wanted to use that message content, right? So this is how you would parse your JSON. And you can have, like I said, if you have a custom JSON object, you can come in and parse it to grab the data as you need. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to go back to my side-by-side view because let's see what was happening here. We have, so if you notice, so this is what the default like sort of looks like, the 0 triggers. It's enabled, it's running, but it'll run only every 20 minutes, correct? And if I open up the rest of my dashboard now, it should have a couple of different resources. So we have all of this completely set up. I'm going to go into my service bus. I'm going to go into, so if you notice, like this will start pulling in values for you. You'll start seeing that, oh, okay, this many requests came in, things like that. So I'm going to go into the queue that we created. This is the IoT button queue. And if you notice, currently has 0 active messages. There's no messages in the queue because the Pi is turned off. I haven't pressed a button since, the local test, before we had the queues and stuff set up. So we have service bus running here. It's going to run every 20 minutes. We can't wait that long. Nobody has patience. I'm going to do this. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to run this now. Get the app back up on my Pi. Let's generate some messages. So I'm going to keep the button pressed down here. And so this is why I had the threshold set down to 5, just for the purposes of the demo running through right now, because I want a couple of messages to come into the queue. So it fires, the Logic app and we can see things. So I'm just going to keep the button pressed down for a couple more messages to go through. So we had, and there's a bit of a delay, of course, because, it's sending data from this to up to the cloud. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly magic is happening, and then it's going to come up in the queue, right? So I'm going to let this run for a couple more seconds, and you're seeing, so all of the stuff is happening. We have a couple of messages in the queue right now. So let's go back to our resources. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to see if something has come up in the queue. We have 4 messages lined up in the queue. That's good. That's what we're expecting right now. That's excellent. And I don't want to wait for the first 20 minutes to pass before this happens. So I'm just going to run this trigger right now. And you can see when you run, it's like, you want to run that service bus queue? I'm like, yes, run the service bus queue. We have 4 messages in there. So it's grabbed. It looks like it grabbed in the first 3. And it is running. So yes, only 1 tweet will go through, because like I said, the Twitter thing doesn't let you like spam a gazillion different messages. So ideally your service bus should have only 1 message. That's the one that will flow through the Logic app, and that's what you tweet out. But let's see what happened in my profile. So let's go into my Twitter, and what do you know? What do you know? It is right here. So this is the message that came in at 5:28. It's 5:29 right now. So literally from the button press that I just did. And that's it. So we went from setting up. So we went from this, sort of setup over here. We've got the button press going. And from there, we went into the code. And what you saw right now was the button press that's going in from here. So I press my button. It's sending up messages to IoT Hub. It's also lighting up my LED, so it looks cool. And then it have a Twitter message. So I'm going to now go in and maybe edit this to maybe send funny messages to my coworkers. I don't know, to my friends. Let's see. But yeah, so that's basically all that we have, and that is the end of my README. That means it's the end of everything we have over here. So let me go back to my slides, and I'm going to go back to this view. Excellent. So we went from setting up a circuit, setting up VS Code for debugging, learning how .NET, C#, you can use all the tools. If you're already a .NET developer like me, you already know how these things work. You can just use all of the knowledge from there and get a IoT smart button working. There's lots of, like, this is a very simple program, but you can extend it in so many different ways. You can learn how to connect this to an email. You can use a lot of the built-in connectors. You can use Twilio to send out an SMS. You can line up 2 or 3 different buttons, control them via the different pins, and make them do different actions. So any questions at this point? I'm going to wait a couple of seconds because this is Twitch, so it's going to take a few seconds for you guys to hear me ask that question. So I'm going to wait because we're already over by 30 minutes. My bad. But but if there are any other questions, anything you would like to go over right now, we can take them in the Twitch stream. You can open up an issue on the GitHub and I can try and answer it. Okay, so we have, is this similar to using an Azure function and adding an item to a table queue? Yes, this kind of is. Similar to that, only if we were to use an Azure function, if you're comfortable and you understand how Azure functions work, totally, you can replicate the same flow using Azure and adding an item to a table queue. It's basically the same process. They all live in Azure, so you can get that table queue to trigger the logic app completely possible. The reason I like IoT Hub and doing it this way is it's really easy to onboard. The documentation and tutorials are amazing, and you don't have to write. So you don't have to spend time writing your own Azure function and then setting it up. But if your project needs it, you can replicate the same flow using Azure functions and a table queue. It's very similar. Yep. Thank you all for watching. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I had lots of fun making it. So any more questions, like I said, feel free to tweet. You have the link to the repo. Open an issue or a question in the repo. I try my best to answer it as soon as I can. All of the links, everything that I opened, you must have noticed as I was doing, it's all in the GitHub repo. All the links are in there. The code is, of course, in there. It works. Just follow the setup videos in the IoT series, and you can come back and you can get Blinky running, and then you can work your way up from there. So yeah, totally. I'm so glad you liked it. I'm so glad you found this useful and educational. Again, feel free to find me. Go find that tweet and like it. That'd be really funny. But yeah, thanks all for joining. This was great fun, and I will see you guys on Thursday. Our Azure IoT Hub with Xamarin session is at 9 a.m. PST on Thursday. So if you guys want to see an advanced version of this where we do auto provisioning and write a mobile client app that talks to IoT Hub, come and check out our stream. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Bye.